Welcome to the Ascend Growth AI podcast, where we mix smart growth moves with a little AI magic. I'm Teresa. Let's dive in. For today's guests, we have Pino Di Ioia, the CEO and owner of BeaverTails. He's helped transform a beloved Canadian pastry brand into an internationally recognized franchise with a cult following, all while staying deeply committed to culture, community, and values-based leadership. So, Pino, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Teresa. That was a wonderful and generous introduction. Thank you.
So, why don't we start by having you share your journey with us?
Sure, probably not a typical journey. I wanted a job, actually, a job in fashion from a company that came from your neck of the woods, I think San Diego proper.
Okay.
Esprit Clothing,
Yes.
before your
Yeah.
time.
Right.
It was
I
kind of like the
remember that term.
J. Crew of its time back
Yes.
in the day. And I'm pretty sure they were from San Diego. And they were just opening them up in Montreal. And I applied for a job and I did not get the job. So instead, I applied for a job in QSR, which is kind of, every kid can work in quick service. And I started at a little place called BeaverTails, which had only one store outside of Ottawa, the capital of Canada, smaller city. They only had one outside of Ottawa, and it was in Montreal. That's the store I applied for.
Wow.
And as I like to tell my kids, when you don't get fired, it's amazing how high up the ranks you can go. So just I stayed year after year, and from manager, I became their first franchisee and their first area
Mm.
rights owner. And then I was hired by them as CEO to run it for the founders, husband and wife duo. And then eventually, my twin brother, my wife, and myself bought it out from them. So really, I did pretty much every step in the franchise world.
Wow, that's fantastic. And did you ever think you were going to do that?
No, literally, I remember the founder asked me maybe 3 years before I bought the first franchise. He says, "Would you ever consider a franchise?" And I laughed. I said, "Oh, absolutely not. I'm going to university and it's furthest thing from my mind." But I guess in life you just never know. Things
Yes.
change, and it's just a building block, right? It's one on top of the other, and you really don't know where you're ultimately ending up. But if you enjoy every step and I guess persevere at every step, a lot of things are possible.
That's fantastic. Well, sounds like it had a very happy result for you.
Yes, yeah,
And for our audience who doesn't know what Beaver Tails is, can you explain what the brand is?
absolutely, and with pride. So essentially, we are the only branded funnel cake or fried dough in the world, even. So in
Mm.
America, you will have elephant ears, but that's not a branded name. It's a generic name. So we like to say that you might go to a state fair and get a pretty good elephant ear, but you might go to a state fair and get a really bad elephant ear. We guarantee a fantastic premium product. We've got about 150, 160 stores in Canada from coast to coast to coast. We just opened in Nunavut, which is the great, great, great white north, and really
Wow.
from Victoria over to Prince Edward Island on the other side. If you're in Canada for any tourist or leisure reason, chances are you'll stumble onto one of our stores. We really dominate that segment.
Sounds like it. And are you in the United States as well?
Two humble little outposts. We've got one in Lagoon Lake, Utah, a little amusement park there that's done very well. We've been there for a number of years. And another one with a young couple that started a franchise as a food truck in Arkansas and are now looking at doing a second one. We're very proud of both
Wow.
of them. So we've taken a kind of a passive approach to the States, just trying to see how the reactions were and where we best belong. And we're still trying to sort that out post COVID. We thought it was going to be more on the amusement park sphere.
Mm.
Amusement parks it took a bit of a beating during COVID. Still a lot of debt in that industry and restructuring going on. So we're trying to figure out what to do next. But we're hoping we announce an opening in the next 6 to 12 months.
Fantastic. Yeah, I would. I
Yeah.
mean, at least in the States, when you hear about funnel cake, you do associate it with carnivals or amusement parks. So it sounds like that's not the case in Canada, and it's like in a strip mall or like just like a regular store.
No, it pretty much is a very similar environment.
Oh, okay.
So we're in places like Banff, which
Yes.
kind of is a Pigeon Forge reality,
Mhm.
maybe with more ski hills, or Old Montreal, which would be maybe like a little bit, the pier over in Oregon, not far from you, in
Mhm.
Portland rather. Tourist and leisure, strictly speaking,
Sure.
pedestrian places, not
Okay.
far. We're very similar cultures.
Okay. And then I guess when you look for franchisees, like who are your ideal franchisees?
Far and away, the number one criteria is you gotta love BeaverTails.
Yeah.
So we've had franchisees who approached us and said, "Not sure what a beavertail is. I hear it's a good investment. I want to apply," and we politely declined and tell them, "You got to
Mm,
go try it. Send us a photo of you enjoying a beavertail. We'll talk once you know what the product is all about." We
right.
really are a bit of a love brand, a bit of a cult following in Canada. We talk a lot about Ben and Jerry's. There are U.S.
Yeah.
ice cream idols, but we've got a long history of lots of famous people who come to Canada have to have a beaver tails, from former presidents to kings and queens and you
Well,
name it. Like it's kind of Canada's dessert. So we want to make sure that whoever is serving them is really all in on the culture that
right.
surrounds that.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds very basic and foundational, right? So, like, of
Yes,
course, yeah,
you're so right, Teresa, but we all forget that, right? I mean, sometimes it
right,
becomes transactional and it's easy to forget that the magic is what built the brand, all
right,
brands.
right. Now, really nice to hear that your journey started as the first, I mean, working there, first franchisee, now CEO. Can you talk about how did you scale to 150? I mean, that's pretty big.
Yes, and it's been quite the road because when we were brought in first, when I was hired as a CEO, my twin brother and my wife were already working alongside me. It was already at about 120 stores, and we had to scale down
Oh
to
wow.
about 60 before we rebuilt to the 150. And I
Oh
think
wow.
sadly that's common with a lot of franchises. You grow too fast, maybe in the wrong places, maybe with the wrong people, maybe a bit of all of the above. And those periods of retrenchment, I mean, the big boys do it too. Starbucks just announced that they're doing that for the third time, right? It happens
Right.
to the best of us. It's a competitive market out there. So we really saw the spike and the other side of that valley. And then we brought it back up. And as cliche as it is, Teresa, really the number one, well, the number one, two, and three things that got us through that was we just focused on what it is we do well,
Mm,
where it is that the clients enjoy us, how it is that the clients embrace our product. Silly example, we've tried healthier versions of toppings over the years, and they were panned by clients
wow.
because when you come to our store, that's not when you're thinking of your diet. You come to our
Right.
store to treat yourself.
Right. Right.
So,
You just have to
diet.
lean into.
That's right. And lean
Yeah.
into what we stand for, but lean into the
Right.
whole brand as well on all
Right.
levels. And that's really how we scaled. It's
Wow.
listening. It's in many ways anticlimactically, it's the easy way to scale because you're really just giving the clients what they want.
Right.
But it's
Right.
hard to have that discipline.
And what is the investment like for our franchisee? Like, how big does the square footage have to be? What does the area territory typically look like?
Sure. And they're a little bit of discipline as well. So for the ideal space, it's 1,000 to 1,500 square feet, and what would be the equivalent of about 400,000 to build out with equipment.
Okay.
However, so we try to be disciplined because that's the kind of sweet spot space where we really deliver a great experience. But we have opened stores in places as small as 125 square feet,
Oh,
in
wow.
former mechanical rooms at two ski hills, I'm thinking specifically.
Oh,
So
my
we can
goodness.
fit into quite a little space. And our trucks, I mean, we have food trucks and trailers of 48 or 50 of them on the road.
Oh,
Big part of our business. And those trucks or trailers could be as little as 16 feet by 8 feet, which is 108 square feet. And they'll
wow.
do, maybe not all our menu, but a good
Right.
majority of our menu. So we do
Wow.
have a lot of flexibility, and the trucks will run you as little as about 140,000, or the trailers will. So a little bit of flexibility, but our discipline is still that 1,000 to 1,500 square foot flagship sweet spot is our preference.
Wow. That's really interesting. I mean, such a big range. So that
Yes,
could work with a smaller square footage. And
yes.
how has the appetite been in the United States with Utah and Arkansas?
Phenomenal reaction, and I can tell you both of those were from American guests who visited our stores in Canada. And I can also tell you for the Google reviews, which, like any other proper business, we review those things daily. We have a nice little software that compiles our summaries, and every day, like in the summertime, we're blessed to have so many US visitors over up in Canada. And in the summertime, not a day goes by where we don't have at least one American guest commenting on a store somewhere in Canada saying, "You got to get these to the States. These are delicious." And humbly, because I'm not the founder. I didn't come up with the recipe. But humbly speaking, I can tell you, Teresa, this is really a premium fried dough like you've never
Oh
tried.
my.
It is a very unique combination. And our toppings really are premium toppings as well. So I don't want to say more than that. You got to try them to believe them, but
I feel
I
like I wanna
stand
make a
by
trip
them.
to Canada just to just to try this.
You're welcome
Oh,
anytime.
or I could go to Utah, actually, so
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true
great.
too. Might be a bit closer.
Yeah. Let's talk about, in general, franchise model. What are some key cost drivers, and how do you approach managing them?
Well, and we're all facing a lot of those. So
Yes.
post-COVID, food costs has really gotten a little bit out of control. We do what everybody else is doing, as much pre-portioning as possible, simple recipes. That is what it is. I think we all live with that grocery bill that is higher than we ever thought it would be, and that's exponentially amplified when you're in the food service space. But labor is the other big one. We're all short on labor, and that's on both sides of the border. It's amazing how we follow similar trends despite whatever is happening in the world. Canada and US are on very parallel realities. Labor is a tricky one because in our case, we still, and this is one of our signature realities or criteria, we hand stretch every pastry. So it
Oh,
starts from a little ball of dough and we hand stretch it to the shape of a beaver's tail, which is where we get our eponymous name. That's been the case since the beginning.
mm,
We have ways of doing that in a machined environment. It's not as magical. We serve millions of these per year, and
right.
no two are identical because they're really hand stretched uniquely. That's part of who we are. It takes a little bit longer to educate new employees on how to do that. A lot of student employees, as you can imagine, in the leisure industry, summertime jobs. So it's not impossible to train kids to do it. We do it all the time, but it is trickier. So there we've been careful as to what additional menu items we add on so that our staff can still be focused and comfortable doing the hero signature pastry and worry less about over expansion of menu. Constant reconciling, constant natural tension. Franchisees want more products, want to
Mm,
generate more top line with menu expansion. Of course, we want to share in that as well, but we're trying to save everybody from their own worst enemy themselves,
yeah.
and make sure that we don't gallop too far. Stay on the short and narrow.
How many menu items do you currently have?
Well, signature pastry is always 13 on the menu. There's one LTO rotating and 12
Yeah.
core ones. But depending, we might have a few more LTOs. So we just
Mhm.
we have a lot of fun with that. When Taylor Swift came to Canada at the beginning of the summer, we did a tail or Swift little
I
blue and
love that.
white blue. It was very fun actually, blue and pink cotton candy on top of a tail with specialty toppings. So we'll release things like that quite often. That
Right.
could get us up to about 14. But then we also have a savory menu. So you may be
Mm,
familiar with poutine, which is
mhm.
Canada's French fry delicacy. We're all in on the Canada, so we have the poutine, but we also have a beaver dog, which is an all beef Frankfurter wrapped
Mm,
in our beaver tail. So
mm,
that's where we've got four kinds or four flavors of beaver dog and four flavors of poutine and ice cream that you could put on our beaver tails or have
mm.
just on a cone. And that starts to get up there, along with signature beverages. And signature beverages, I mean, that's a competitive space. Chick-fil-A is just releasing their own beverage shop, a bit like Cosmic that McDonald's opened and shuttered in the last year. Lots of people getting into beverages, but beverages, they could be time consuming. Make sure that our staff is able to focus on the hero. The hero is the beaver tail for us.
And if you have students mostly, and that's continuous turnover, you're
Yeah.
constantly training, so that I can understand why you'd wanna keep the menu more simple.
Yeah, we got to make it easy for them, right?
Yes.
We not only want to retain the staff we have, we actually have very low turnover within our chain. We're
Oh, okay.
blessed with that. And I think it's partly because it's such a fun product and we're in such fun environments that
Mhm.
people have fun serving them. And certainly that's our ambition and our hope. But within that reality, we want to make sure that we keep you happy while you are working with us. And that means not driving you up the walls with complicated menu items.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Um, what are some trends that you see shaping the future of franchise operations and cost optimization?
Well, so simplicity is definitely a big one in there. And we've all read about the automation, which includes things like robotics and automated fryers with I've seen a number of people now. I follow a chain out of New York called Blank Street Coffee that uses
Mhm.
very sophisticated automated coffee machines that I have to tell you from my visits to them in New York, but we have those machines in Canada too. That makes a very good coffee. But
Mm,
I've seen now robotic arms like you would see on a space shuttle, but that they use an old school coffee machine and make a full espresso based menu. That's that's intense, but we're
yeah.
all aiming that way, and we'd like to view that and say, wow, if our staff could have the more redundant stuff taken care of for them, I think they
Mm,
would be very happy to see that happen. But then I also think that some of the automation that's happening on almost the softer technology side is the infiltration of AI and
yeah.
data management. All the data analysis we do, we're now able to pinpoint much more quickly
Mm,
which items are selling, which categories are growing, where we should be focused, where we should maybe be avoiding. So that's a form of labor simplification as well, right? I mean,
yeah.
we're working the labor out of the equation before it becomes a problem by imagining where to focus our energy. So I think all of that is real.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're using AI for decision making, all right, and trend
We
analysis.
are. We've baptized. We have a corporate account of ChatGPT, and we've baptized them George after partly after Curious George, the monkey. But we all use George and work on shared projects with him, and are amazed at some of the research that he's helping us with. He, the proverbial machine, is helping us with. So yeah, it's very real. But we're also now using AI in our data analysis, all of our data lakes, whether from the wholesale data purchase history that we have from all our stores, by
Mm,
region, by store type, as well as live from our cash register
mm,
system, is all being merged into one data stream and is undergoing AI treatment so that we could better estimate and project and also better backwards analyze which stores are maybe leaving money on the table or should be focusing more on different parts of efficiencies. Yeah,
mm.
it's real. It's deep in there.
Yeah, no, that's good. Do your franchisees also use AI too?
I mean, casually or for fun, but no, they would. I
Because it's
could
more
maybe
physical.
think of, yeah, a few of them are doing some of their local posts with it. So some maybe hashtagging on Facebook or Instagram posts, but generally speaking, they would have less of a need for that. Although now that come to think of it, one franchisee mentioned that he did generate a list with ChatGPT of ways to motivate staff. So I guess there
Oh,
too, the
there you go.
creative person will, yeah, you'll find ways to use it.
Yes. No, that's great. Have you implemented any unique or creative strategies for improving profitability across any location?
So I'd want to say yes, and I think that this is a unique strategy, but an obvious one. It's not nothing groundbreaking. We've really focused on the top line in the last
Mm,
3 years.
okay.
And through COVID, we've all undergone intense competition. But by focusing on the top line, maybe simplistically, but we believe that any of our stores can be competitive and can absorb cost increases if the top line continues to grow.
Yes.
And we've got stores doing double digit growth regularly for
Wow.
multiple years on end. I mean, in the COVID period itself, the 3 years of peak COVID, if you will, we doubled our chain sales. And a
Wow.
lot of that went through same store sales. So that really taught us that sometimes, distance yourself from the noise and focus on the big prize. And the big prize is boost that top line and the rest will be a lot more forgiving.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, for any business, you need to have the cash, right? From the top
Yes,
line in
cash
order
is
to.
king,
Yeah.
100%. You can't save yourself into profitability. You can,
Right.
but there's a limit to that.
Exactly. What lessons have you learned from scaling that might help other franchise leaders as they
Hmm.
face similar challenges?
Well, so there too, Teresa, I don't want to be cliche, but I think we should all emulate this with our kids as well. It's be the best that you could be at what you are good at being.
Yeah.
And don't try to be what you're not. Because you can't scale what you're not. You could pretend to, but that catches up to you. But
Mhm.
when you find your sweet spot, like double down on that, and that's what you want to really dominate on. And it
That
makes it a lot more fun and less stressful, right? Like you're focusing on what you're naturally good at.
yes, yes. No, that's true. That's good advice. What's working well in Beaver Tails right now? Like, what are you most proud of?
I would say our culture and how our culture reflects on our flavors. And
Mm,
we've gotten now, the flavors are what we have a very unique pastry. But of course, it's made more unique with whatever flavors you put on it. And a bit like
Yeah.
the Taylor Swift example that I gave you, our army of fans, we use fan ambassadors, and our
Okay.
army of franchisees and their employees who are welcome to join the ranks of our fans. They get swag and all of that fun stuff. And they get it. They get it sometimes, more quickly and more naturally than we get it.
Mhm.
And when they get it, the flavors they propose, spot on. Like they get the brand, they get our DNA.
Yeah. That's
And so
that's fun.
and now that propagates our own growth, right? Like now
Right.
it's like a virus. It's just spreading on its own. And it's great to see because now you've got frontline people really participating in the fun.
Right. I mean, I love the Taylor Swift example. What's another example of something that came from the fans?
Well, okay, so I'll give you one, but this was our April Fools, and it's very Canadian. So some of your listeners are going to wonder what we do up north. But we have tomato ketchup chips, like
Oh,
Heinz flavored or just
mhm.
any ketchup chips. And that's actually a really popular chip flavor in Canada.
Okay.
So we did the tail, the tomato tail for
Okay.
Thanksgiving, for April Fools.
Okay.
So that was a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Justin Bieber, who's of course Canadian, early in his career threw eggs at his neighbor's mansion. That's also weird, but that's a Canadian thing. I don't know why. And so we did the Bieber tail, and we put little Cadbury eggs on our beaver
Oh,
tail.
okay.
That one was really good actually.
Yeah.
And well, we just did a Dubai North, which was our, the classic Dubai chocolate and pistachio,
Mm.
but with a little bit of a Canadian twist to it on a beaver tail. So
Wow.
no end of flavor combinations available there.
That's really fun. And how often do you come up with the new flavors? I'm sure fans
Well,
are giving those all the time.
very, it's a good question. You may not expect the answer. We try to do it at least monthly, but we
Okay.
actually don't have a prescribed formula because we
Mm.
really want it to come from, sounds so cliche, but from the heart. Like we want it to come
Sure.
from the brand. And if
Yeah.
that means that we just did a hog wild flavor for fall, it's our real maple syrup spread with bacon bits on it. I think didn't even have a theme reason per se, but it's maple syrup. Maple syrup season is actually in February in Canada. It just felt like now was the time, so boom, we did it. So the times we try to make them unpredictable because that's like your cravings. They're impulsive and unpredictable.
Right. That sounds really fun. I just those few examples alone, I could tell what kind of culture your BeaverTails has. So that's that's
Well, you're getting it too. You're going to be one of our brand ambassadors. That's great.
yes. I would love that. So we talked about what you're proud of. On the flip side, what's been frustrating?
I think the general stress of society. I think the world has just been teetering on edge for a long time all over the world. I mean, not just the war zones that we all read about and hear about incessantly. But I think post COVID, we've just, as a human species, we've become very stressed. And our slogan is we make happy happier.
Oh,
And
okay.
that
Yeah.
doesn't work when your shipment is 3 days late or when your factory was blown out in one of the hurricanes, and these are all true stories, by the way, or when there's a shortage of a key ingredient for our poutine sauce. It's hard to make happy happier and it's hard to be happy.
Right.
So I think that's just the everyday stress of life. When you have as happy as ours, we should be able to just enjoy making it. Teresa, it's not like we want you to have a beaver tail every week.
Right.
Reality is that they're 12 inches, they're quite large, and our cinnamon
Mm.
sugar one, because it's float cooked, it's real canola oil,
Mm.
it's whole wheat dough, and I can go on and on. It's less than 400 calories for a
Oh
big.
wow.
Yeah, it's actually not
Mhm.
bad. But believe it or not, we put it on our menus because we're required to in some jurisdictions, so there's a calorie count up there, but we don't promote it. Because again,
Right.
that's not the feature. The feature is
Right.
this thing is going to make you happy. And if some
Mm.
people read the calorie count and say, "Oh wow, it's really not that bad," all the better. We made happy
Right.
much happier. But really, we want to put a smile on your face. This is a
Right.
treat. So
Right.
you're going to have 5 or 6 of these a year, and you'll remember every single one. And
Right.
that's our
That
game.
that's true. And like you said, I mean, people are going there. They already know they're not going to be saving calories, right? So you don't need
Yeah,
to promote that.
that's
So
right. That's
yeah,
right.
yeah. Where do you want Beaver Tails to be 6 to 12 months from now?
We'd love to have more stores in the US. That's always been an ambition of ours, and we truly do want to share that with the US. And we have a distant cousin of our product, which you all know. It's called the churros, and
Mm.
that's the Latin American version a fried dough. Humbly, we want America to be able to taste their northern neighbors' version of our treat. I don't want to pretend Canadians try to be humble, so I don't want to pretend that we're better than a churros, but we are very good in our own way, and we think it's worth
Oh,
sharing. And I think if we could continue being, in many ways, we've often been referred to as Canada's iconic dessert. That's a label we don't take lightly, and which we
right.
very humbly accept. But if we could share that with our American neighbors, I think that would put a smile on everyone's face over here at Head Lodge.
How are you currently potentially finding potential franchisees in the States?
We do some select advertising, but we're not
Okay.
in active expansion mode. So we do,
Oh,
we the normal lead generation thing. We've done a trade show before COVID, so we understand American trade shows. We've done two, a franchise show and the amusement industry show. Learned a lot about those shows. COVID put a halt on that. But at this point, we're more trying to figure out which direction we want to go in. We have one full-time employee in the US, and we're working with that individual to target the first flagship store, if you will. We have a few different places that we're looking at. And then from there, we'll roll out an effective lead strategy.
right. Okay, that makes sense. Well, I hope you get there because I want it to be around
We want you to
around
try
me.
it too.
Yes,
Absolutely.
good. What would you tell your younger self if you were to do something differently and start over again?
You said it. So good for you. Exactly the expression you used. I would tell myself to lean in harder and earlier.
Mm.
I think
Oh,
as
earlier.
as yeah, I think as young people we tend to be I think this is true of today's generations too. We tend to be a little bit skittish or a little bit reserved, we're not sure. We can't be sure, but there's no time like the present.
Yeah.
You got less to lose when you're young, so lean in and jump in.
When you first started talking about your journey, it sounded like you started pretty early, though, right?
Well, yes, I was late teens, so I guess I wasn't
Wow.
quite 20 yet. So yes, you're right. But I started as an employee, which is fine.
Right.
But maybe I should have had the boldness to offer to buy the first franchise they ever sold even earlier. Or
I
maybe I
see.
should have offered to buy the company even earlier. I should have influenced what they were doing
Mm,
over at head office before I became CEO even
right.
earlier. I was always reserved and not happy being in the passenger seat, but I accepted being in the passenger seat. Maybe I should have been less reserved.
Okay. No, that's great advice. As a leader, what tips would you give to those who want to aspire to be the CEO of a business one day?
Figure out your core values. Figure out what you stand for as an individual. Figure out what your brand stands for. Sometimes core values don't align.
Mm,
We've had, especially on the operations side, we've had very, very sophisticated ops people in our company in the past, but who are too operational.
okay.
Good example of that is they might machine the shape of our beaver tail. Because if you were purely interested in efficiency, that
Yeah.
makes absolute sense to do. In fact, it
Right.
doesn't make sense to do it the way we're doing it.
Right.
But that's not our core value. Our core value
Mm,
is authenticity is one of them. And we want to have a unique product for every single client and guest who comes through our doors. Figuring out what you believe in and figuring out what your brand believes in, making sure those are aligned. There's,
yeah.
maybe some reconciliation that needs to happen there. If you're an aspiring CEO and you are in a great company that's growing and you're tempted by that growth, but you don't necessarily truly cherish the values they have,
Mm,
doesn't mean they're the wrong values. It's just the wrong values for you or non-aligned values. You've got to move on. You've got to go somewhere where you are more aligned because
yeah.
the leaning in doesn't happen authentically unless there's alignment on those values.
That's really good advice. And if people wanted to get in touch with you, where can they find you on?
LinkedIn is probably the best thing. I'm Pino Di Ioia, as you see it spelled LinkedIn. There's not many of us with that name on LinkedIn, and BeaverTails, you'll find it very easily as well. And I'm pretty good on LinkedIn. But it's been wonderful being part of this, and I hope that some of the stuff been able to share from the Great White North and BeaverTails Pastry has been enlightening for some of your listeners.